Hello students, welcome to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Today I am going to explain you about mulberry propagation. The major agenda of mulberry propagation is to establish a high quality mulberry plantation through effective sexual and asexual multiplication techniques. Here mulberry propagation. What do you mean by a propagation? Propagation means reproducing or multiplying. Reproducing and multiplying mulberry plants. This will help farmers to grow the mulberry in a higher rate and in a faster manner. So there are two types of propagations that are present. First one is a sexual propagation and the second one is the asexual propagation. Asexual propagation is also called as a vegetative propagation. Here we will be introducing about the mulberry. Mulberry, it belongs to the genus Morus. It is a foundation of sericulture industry. We usually consider that silkworm or else a cocoon plays an important role in the silk industry or a sericulture, but the sole and the important aspect on the important topic that relates the whole sericulture is on the mulberry leaves. So this mulberry leaves is a sole food source for the silkworm. We see Bombax murray which produces precious silk fibers. So if we see the mulberry, it has a quality foliage. The quality foliage is vital for high silk yields. Mulberry is fast growing perennial plant. What is a perennial plant? It can be grown any time of the year. It can be cultivated in any time of an year under any climatical conditions, but the management has to be taken care of. It has to be managed, it has to be well managed. If we see, it thrives in various climates across the India. In India we see different types of climatical conditions like summer, winter and rainy season. Even during these type of seasons, mulberry can survive. If it is maintained and if it is managed under proper conditions, mulberry can be cultivated in any time of the year. And also across the India there are different types of mulberries that are present. We will see proper propagation ensures garden longevity. That means proper maintenance, proper production, proper multiplication of the mulberry plant, it gives a garden longevity. That means the garden years will be longer. That means it can be cultivated for several years without any break. So success of the sericulture, success of the silk industry is majorly dependent upon the mulberry plantation, and the major care has to be taken for the mulberry plants. Farmers must master planting techniques. So farmers has to be educated continuously as agriculture is changing every day, as agriculture is evolving every day. Farmers has to be educated in creating a new techniques and ensuring that techniques are well managed and is under a favorable conditions. They have to be educated because the mulberry plays an important role in the sericulture industry. That means the success of a sericulture or the silk industry is majorly dependent upon the mulberry itself. Next, through this lesson you will learn the learning objectives of this lesson is, first thing, you have to ensure about the site selection. That means understand in the site selection you will be understanding the critical factors for choosing a location to establish a productive mulberry nursery and a garden. That means here in this chapter you will be understanding the site selection, the importance of the site selection, which site is suitable, which soil is suitable, which conditions are suitable, have been taught in this class. And then if you see the soil science, that means we learn about soil composition, we will see the nutrient requirements and the importance of pH levels for the mulberry growth. Then we see the methods, master from both sexually, that means the sexual propagation is done through the seeds and asexual is done through the vegetative parts, that means through stem, through buds, through leaves. So here it tells us the good methods to multiply the high yielding varieties. By the end of this unit, you will be able to understand and you will be able to distinguish between different propagation techniques like grafting, budding, layering, and ensuring the sustainable silkworm food production. So first we'll be seeing the selecting the ideal site. As mentioned, first thing to grow a mulberry plant, you need to have a good site. That means you need to have a good location. Location plays an important role in the cultivation of the mulberry. Location is the most influential factor in long-term success. A poor site can lead to the stunted growth and disease outbreaks. That means the ideal site, that means the correct site for the cultivation of the mulberry plays an important role, because growth of the plant is dependent upon the location that has been grown. Why? Because the location, if we consider it as a location, it has climatic conditions, it has the soil consistency, because all these factors might affect the growth of the mulberry plant. If the location is not suitable for the growing of the mulberry, it might give us stunted growth. That means the growth can be shortened and it can be filled with diseases which will completely destroy the plant and also it can be completely destroy the crop. So choosing the right location, what do you mean by right location for the mulberry plants? If you choose a slightly elevated land or else a slightly elevated lands or else a flat lands. Why? Because water logging would happen in the highly elevated lands or else in the flat lands. Why water clogging is being maintained? Because if the water is been clogged, there won't be any aeration process, because as there is no aeration process, the soil must be contaminated and it can give a fungal diseases which might affect the root. As the major part of the plant is the root, it might get affected and the whole plant will be a diseased plant. So proximity to a reliable water source is essential. That means the water irrigation system has to be very correct to the cultivation of the mulberry plant. You need to ensure the soil is deep and it is fertile land. You have to mention that soil has to be a fertile and that soil has to be a deeper level. Proper drainage system is also has to be maintained to avoid the root rot. What is root rot means? The root rot is nothing but if the root is been rotten or else the root is been diseased, it is termed as a root rotten. So if the proper drainage system, that means draining of water, if it is managed, that root will be healthier. If the root is healthier, the plant will be growing healthier. And also we have to avoid the shaded regions. Because why are we avoiding the shaded regions? Because for the growing of the mulberry plant, sunlight plays an essential role. Why sunlight plays an essential role? Because it helps in the photosynthesis process. So for the growth of the plant, photosynthesis is majorly required. Next we have protection from strong winds helps to prevent the damage. That means as we are choosing a slightly elevated land or else a flat lands, that means it doesn't mean that it can be placed in the mountain areas or else at a slopey regions. We have to make sure that it doesn't have a strong winds which can affect or which can damage the mulberry plant. Second, we are looking into the soil requirements for the mulberry. As we have chosen a right location for the mulberry cultivation, the second requirement is a soil requirement. So mulberry is adaptable, but it performs best in specific soil. That means mulberry, we agree mulberry can be grown in any climatical condition. At any unfavorable conditions also mulberry can be grown, but if it can be grown rightly, if the soil is been, if there is some specific soil, that means the soil composition, the soil proportion has to be maintained properly for the good cultivation of the mulberry. So the good that means it has to maintain up to 6.5 to 7 pH value. That means it has to be slightly acidic to neutral soils. This soil will be perfect for the growing of the mulberry plant. If pH is low, you have to add lime is added. If it is too high, gypsum has to be added. That means gypsum helps to stabilize the pH value. That means for the good growth, for the good cultivation of the mulberry plant, soil composition, soil stability and the soil consistency is very important. Here this mulberry can be properly grown if it has a specific soil. First one, as we see, a red soil, these are widely preferred in India. If it is a red soil, that means the mulberry plant can be grown healthily, and it has to be a deep soils which should be over 2 feet itself, which supports, as we are preferring a deep soils, it prefers a deep root systems as well, and this soil has to manage and it has to maintain a good moisture, and the aeration has to be done well. The aeration here means the transportation of water, or else the transportation of the water. Why? Because if the soil doesn't transport, if the transpiration process doesn't happen properly, the water will be clogged, that the soil will be clogged, it becomes like a clay, it doesn't have a proper air exchange method, because of which the root will be rotten. Then we have to avoid highly alkaline or saline or a soil patches, saline soil patches, and the highly alkaline soil has to be avoided. If the pH is low, we need to add a little lime, and if it is too high, we have to add little gypsum to make it a stabilizing. Now in the soil composition, the sand and the silt, we have to make sure it should have a sand and a silt in the soil. This soil texture is determined by the proportions of different particles. That means this soil is not only particularly mentioning it should be a red soil, but it should be having a composition. That means the sand and also the silt has to be present in the soil for the healthier growth of the plant. Understanding sand and the silt is a key to managing mulberry roots. Here if we add sand particles, it is those are the large pores, it will be ensuring excellent aeration for the roots. As we are taking a red soil, as we pour water in the soil, it might become a clay sometimes, because it might become a clay, and it might it will be having a poor drainage system, because of which if we add sand particles to the soil, it has a large pores and which will be helping in the process of aeration. However, it does not hold water, sand does not hold water well, so because of which we are adding sand to the soil. Then a small amount is necessary to prevent soil from becoming too compact, too hard. We should not mix 75% of the soil, rather we shall mix a 25% or 30% of the sand in the soil. Then we are adding silt particles. This silt is a finer than a sand, that means this is much thinner compared to the sand. Here this has to be added in the lower part of the soil, so that what happens, it has a moderate capacity, it doesn't have a good water holding capacity, but it has a moderate, that means a medium water holding capacity, and also it consists of good nutrient value. So it adds the smooth feel. As the sand, it will be little rough, but the silt particles, these are little smoother, and which are healthier, which are nutritive, and which also have a water holding capacity, because of which this will be helping in creating a good creating a good soil composition for the young saplings. So balance the ratio of soil, balance the ratio of red soil, sand and silt has to be taken care of, and it has to be managed. So balance the ratio ensures that the roots can breathe while still having access to moisture during dry periods of the growth cycle. Even during the dry seasons, as mentioned, mulberry can be grown under different climatical conditions as well. So during the dry seasons also, this soil, sand and silt will help the roots to be moisture. It helps the roots to be moist all the time, and it helps the growth. That means this soil plays precious role in the development and the cultivation of the mulberry plant. Next we have a clay and loam composition. The chemical and the structural strength of soil comes from its clay content and overall loam content structure. That means clay. What is clay? Clay is a tiny particle with high nutrient holding capacity. Too much of clay can lead to water clogging, and also there will be a poor root aeration. If we see the loam, that means I mentioned clay is a specific soil, that means mulberry can be grown well in a red soil, and the loam is nothing but it is a mixture of sand, silt and the clay. That means if we add 40% of sand, 40% of silt and 20% of the soil, this 20% of the clay, this should be the ratio of the composition. This loam is called as a gold standard. Why is it called as a gold standard? Because it will be helpful for the commercial mulberry gardens. It will prevent the soil from becoming too sticky, or it will prevent the soil from becoming too dry. So proper loam supports beneficial microbial activity in the root zones. If the microbial activity is proper, that means the root health will be proper. If the microbial, if there is any infection or if there is any composition defects in the soil, what happens? The root will be rotten and it will be filled with it will be injured. So it makes a ploughing and weeding easier to the farm layers. So because of the clay and the loam composition, it makes as weeds can also be grown in the farm, so it will prevent from the weeds to be grown in a higher rate more than compared to the mulberry plant. Next we see nutrient management. As we have seen shooting, as we have mentioned about the good site we have spoken about the soil. Now the nutrient management. The concerns that we have shown upon the land and upon the location, upon the soil, it is also important to make sure about the nutrient management. That means healthy plants require high nitrogen and minerals. That means we use a combination of organic and organic minerals, organic, inorganic components, and also we will be using a chemical nutrition as well. So if we see organic source, if we talk about the organic source, we are seeing about the farm yard manure, that means FYM. This FYM will improve the soil structure. This FIM will be improving the soil structure, and also it will be including in the water retention. And also if we see the chemical fertilizers, these chemical fertilizers are being used for the rapid growth. As we apply 20 kgs of farmyard manure per nursery bed initially, but nitrogen, if we see nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus, these are the three components which we are using. This nitrogen will promotes the lush, this will promote the green leaf production. That means it will be having a high chlorophyll content, because of which the leaf will be looking in a green in color. The chlorophyll pigment itself states, that means this chlorophyll pigment will be initiating the color of the leaf, that is green color. Then we see a phosphorus, which will be strong and which will be helpful for the root development. Then this potassium will be helping in a disease resistance in the plant. Next if we see in the nursery stage. What is nursery? A nursery is a specialized area where the young plants have been grown before the transplantation into the crop. The nursery is a place where we grow the young plants, and then as it grows we will be transferring it into a big cultivating land for the better growth and the development. This nursery will be making sure for the good survival rate as well. The nursery, it is a specialized area where young mulberry plants are raised before being moved to the main field. So why are these nurseries being used? Nurseries are used for the high survival rates, and also as the plants have been grown in the nursery, it makes sure it gets a desired characters from the parents. That means genetically well valid plants can be grown, genetically well mature plants can be grown if the plants have been grown in the nursery. That means what are the objectives for the nursery stage? Means it will be healthy, robust saplings will be grown. Then the location, if we see this location of the nursery, it has to be closer to the water for the irrigation process. For the process of the irrigation, this nurseries has to be closer to the water supplying system, and it has to be monitored every day, because one plant or one injured or one infectious plant can disturb the complete crop. So it has to be monitored completely and every day for a better results. Then protection, you have to guard against, you have to guard against the pests, and also you have to guard against any stray animals, like means if you have to guard against the rats and dogs and every other herbivorous animals which will be affecting the nursery stage of the plant. Then spacing, it should be optimized for growth, and also easy weeding process has to be there. If we see the preparing of the nursery buds, proper bed preparation is first step towards a successful nursery. That means if we see, you have to make sure about the bed size. You have to, for the good and healthy nursery beds, you have to have a proper and accurate composition of the bed size, of the drainage, of the soil tilth, and of the season as well. If you see here the specifications in the bed size, this bed size has to be around 30 centimeters in length or 12 centimeters in breadth. Drainage system has to be well developed. Drainage system here is a water draining capacity, because if the water has been clogged, the roots can be affected. These roots cannot survive in a compact region. Rather, the aeration process has to be continuous. The aeration process has to be well and mature in the soil. So this drainage system has to be a channels of 25 to 30 centimeters in width and 15 to 20 centimeters in the depth. Then we see the soil, the fifth tilth by digging or ploughing twice. You have to plough the soil twice, and then you have to make sure the growth. Then season, it is good from June or July, or November or December. This is the suitable season for the nursery beds. This ensures the land is level and free from stones. You have to make sure it is free from the stones, it is free from the weeds, and this will prevent competition for nutrients and ensures uniform water distribution across the beds. That means if it is been prevented, it prevents, that means if weeds are present, it consumes all the nutrients that have been present in the soil. Hence weeding, that means we have to remove the weeds. As we remove the weeds, what happens? The mulberry plant will get the accurate and sufficient amount of the nutrients rather than the weeds. So by ensuring a uniform water supply across the beds, the mulberry plant can be grown in a proper types. If we see types of propagation, it means reproducing or multiplying of mulberry plants. So here we have two types of propagations. For type 1 is a sexual propagation and type 2 is a asexual propagation. Sexual propagation will be done through seeds. So raising plants from seeds, that means this sexual propagation will be happening through the seeds. That means this method will be allowing for genetic variation. That means the parent plant will not be similar exactly a clone. The parent and the offspring won't be a clones, rather they will be having some genetical variations present. So it is used primarily for creating new varieties. That means this sexual reproduction will be very good if we are looking out for a good varieties. That means if you are looking for a much varieties, this sexual propagation is been used and it has been suggestible. And if we see about the asexual propagation, or it is also called as vegetative propagation. Asexual propagation or vegetative propagation, it will be carried out through a vegetative part, that means through seed, through stem, through leaf, through buds. So if this propagation is been done through stem, leaf and buds, it is called as asexual propagation. This is preferred for commercial cultivation. For the commercial sericulture purpose, we majorly use the vegetative propagation or asexual propagation, because we'll have a desired characters which are capable for growing a good mulberry plants. If you see, most of the farmers, they used vegetative propagation the most commonly used vegetative propagation is a stem cutting propagation, which is common. It is most common and it is a low budget, that means it is a low cost and it has a high success rate in the tropical region as well. if we see the propagation through seeds, it will be while less common for everyday farming, this through seed propagation, this will not be carried out, it won't be carried out regularly by the farmers, because there will be some genetical differences that will be happening. How this propagation will be happening through seeds? We need to collect seeds from the fully ripened mulberry, and you have to crush it, you have to wash it, and you have to place it under a soil, not depth but at a shallow surface, so that what happens, that the sapling will be growing at a faster rate comparatively than if we sow it in the deeper level. The temperature has to be maintained, that is 33 to 36 degrees Celsius. This is ideal for the regeneration. That means you have to nurture the seedlings. That means you have to take good supply. We have to take good care of the seedlings that are being grown. Seedlings typically they germinate within 10 days. So during this time, what happens, it is very delicate to be grown, or it needs a constant attention, it needs a good water system, the moisture has to be maintained, and also the nursery weeds, it should be free from all the weeds, because all the nutrition will be taken away from the weeds. It will be very tougher for the seedling to be growing. Next, why asexual reproduction? Because asexual reproduction has a high success rate because of the genotypic integrity, and also it has a faster maturity, and also it can be grown in a disease resistant manner. That means it will be having a desired characters, because of which we are using an asexual propagation. It is also a budget friendly type of propagation. We see a stem cutting. This stem cutting is the most common, and it is having a high success rate, and it has a good commercial value. Here what we are doing is, the success starts while choosing the right mother plant and the right part of the branch. We use 8 to 10 month old healthier mulberry twigs, which is thickness should be like a pencil like, and it should avoid the tips. We should avoid the tips, and we have to avoid the over mature bases, because branch must be free from any pest. That branch should not be used by any fertilizers or something like that. You have to ensure that the buds are active and also the buds are prominent. Then we are choosing a middle portion of the shoots. Are best for the stem cutting process. If we see the planting techniques, how you place a cutting of the soil determines how well it will be survived for the first critical weeks. The first critical weeks, you have to take the stem, that means the middle portion, you have to place it at a 45 degrees angle in the soil, and this has to be exposed at least one active, this should be having at least one active bud above the surface, because of which what happens, it can be the roots usually develops within 10 to 15 days, and the irrigation should be maintained in a good way after planting the contact. If we see, the success of grafting will be depending upon the physiological process that is called as callus formation. That means it is a healing of the plant tissue. That means here this grafting sources, this callus is a mass that is unorganized parenchymatic cells are present. This grafting, what happens, two plants are being taken and being made a single plant. In this process, what happens, the callus formation is very important. It develops at a point. The upper part is called as a cycon, and the lower part is called as a stalk meat. Here this creates a continuous pipeline for water and also for the food. Here it has to be maintained with a high humidity, because drying can be possible in this method. So high humidity has to be maintained. That means the water has to be given, it has to be hydrated again and again. This union typically takes 15 to 20 days, and it becomes stable after few days. There are different types of we see the other method, it is called as a budding. This is a budding. Budding can be formed through any one bud. So it is capable of forming from a single bud. It is used instead of the whole shoot. Instead of the whole shoot, we are just using a single bud. Here we see a tea bud and eye bud and flute bud. These are the shapes and the cuts that are made to be stocked. This budding is ensures and it uses with the less materials as well. Next we have a layering. Layering will allow branches to develop the roots while still attached to the parent plant, ensuring a constant nutrient supply. That means this layering will be having a high nutritive values because the water stress will be lesser in the layering, and also the nutrition has been completely supplied from the parent plant. We have simple layering, we have trench layering and air layering. Simple layering is been through bending a branch to the soil. Trench layering is through a whole branch in a trench, and we have an air layering, that means roots are high up on the branch. So this will use a moist soil at a rooting site, so we have to wrap it tightly with the plastic, and that means the technical skill has to be very high in the process of layering, because this once the root will be formed, it will be cut and it will be planted separately, because of which what happens, it has a high success rate for the difficult to root species as well.